Hello everybody, Captain Sidaris here. In just a few days, the Star Wars community finally gets a re-release of the classic Star Wars Battlefront games, and I hope a big influx of players. And yeah, for that reason I thought, why not invite another expert and modder of the original games?
Hi, I'm Shaymin. I'm the lead developer of Star Wars Battlefront III Legacy.
Nice to finally meet you. I'm playing your mod for many years now, and yeah, can't wait to hear more about it. But just before we go into it, I would like to know a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
I am a shaman. I play a lot of games and mod a lot of games, and that's pretty much my entire existence at the moment.
And do you have a developer background?
I studied it for a large amount of my time in education before I just decided to kind of drop out and just do what I enjoy.
I see. So you weren't a blank sheet basically when you started this.
I got into modding as like a really young teenager, so it's like pretty much as long as I can remember, I've been around with digital art and stuff. So it's just always been something I've been doing, and I just enjoy doing it as a hobby. I didn't want to do it as a career because, well, then it stops being fun.
Yeah, definitely can understand that. If your hobby is your main job now, it can get on the nerves. And how did you get into Star Wars?
I do not know. All I know is that at some point I was indoctrinated into the Star Wars religion, and now I have not been able to leave.
What religion would that be? The dark side or the light side?
I've always been a bit more leaning on the dark side, not gonna lie.
I can totally understand. They have the cooler designs.
Cooler ships, cooler music. They're just cool.
Yeah, the only thing they miss is sometimes better protection. Shields, for example, on their fighters or railings on their important infrastructures.
Yeah, but if you waste time building railings and everything, you don't have time to build big planet destroying space stations.
It's a good point. The resources for all the railings in the Death Star, that's a lot of money.
Imagine how advanced things would be in the modern day if we didn't focus so much on health and safety.
True. Yeah, well, and then the bigger question here, of course, would be how did you get into Battlefront?
I do not know. It's something that I was introduced so early in my life that I just simply have no recollection of the exact time that I got into it. I just got into it at some point at a very young age on PlayStation 2, on the same PlayStation 2 I do all my modding on. Yeah, and somehow I've spent 20 years playing Battlefront.
And do you know, did you play the original first or did you start with the second one?
Definitely the original first. That I do know because I do remember the first time I managed to get my hands on Battlefront 2 because my older brother had borrowed it from his friend, which must have been late 2006 or early 2007. It was. I started playing Battlefront early enough that I can't remember it, but I remember getting Battlefront 2. So it's kind of in that like weird gap where you're like you're still a toddler, and it's when your memory actually starts to work.
True. But I guess stuff like the decision how to get into the modding, those I hope stick with you. And I'm curious why.
Obviously, as I said, I grew up on PlayStation 2. I was raised in a very good position when it came to gaming because I had an older brother who had obviously the more mature consoles. I had easy access to, Nintendo consoles. PC gaming was encouraged for some reason. I had my own PC at a ridiculously young age, but like I never really looked into downloading custom maps or anything because for me, the PC games I played were creative based anyway, so I didn't go playing shooters or anything. So I think it must have been early 2010s I discovered Battlefront 2 on PC. I realized that online multiplayer was working on it, which was like a big thing because I had a fat PlayStation 2 without a network adapter, so I never knew that online multiplayer was a thing for those games. And I think I eventually discovered the old Star Wars Battlefront file front page and with all those custom maps. And it was cool. I spent the first couple days just binging on Battlefront maps, installing so many until I hit the map limit, and then I'd install a new bunch, go again. And I think it just clicked with me. I was like, oh yeah, no, I can do this. And I slowly learned to do it. I produced some really bad maps that no one will ever find because they're buried so far beneath the earth. But yeah, now I'm respected as an expert.
Well, there are some things which also helps you in that aspect. That file front and SV files is long gone. All those maps are lost in time.
No, we have a lot of them archived. They're just difficult to find because a lot of them haven't been re-uploaded to more modern sites. I know there's a couple of maps. I remember FileFront basically froze in the early 2010s, and if I remember correctly, like froze with the Jade Moon map being on the front page. But you can still find a lot of those maps on the forums and stuff. You just have to they're usually bundled in with map packs and stuff. I will not lie, there are probably maps we've lost, but no interesting or iconic Battlefront map has really been lost.
That's good to hear. Other games weren't that lucky. The FileFront network and the different game files, the website, I mean, had so much content on them, and so many games didn't save them. So many communities didn't have the foresight to go for other platforms.
I don't know of anything that comes to mind that was lost. I think a lot of it was saved and has been since recovered and archived.
Well, then I would say let's go for the question of the day. Outside of the modding community and the old school gamers, I guess not so many fans know that there is a mod which is called Star Wars Battlefront III Legacy. Can you give me a short summary? What is it?
So, Star Wars Battlefront III Legacy is a large-scale mod for the classic Star Wars Battlefront II that intends to recreate the experience that Free Radical wanted to produce with their Star Wars Battlefront 3 in 2008. So we've basing a lot of what we're doing off the concept documents we have, the assets we've extracted, the leaked build, and we're just trying to piece it together in Star Wars Battlefront 2 so that people can play a playable version of what Free Radical wanted to put out.
Which brings me basically to the next question. You, of course, played the leaked version. How easy is it to use content from this leak in the Battlefront 2 engine? Are they very compatible?
When it comes to game engines, most of them are compatible with one. It depends on how an engine is structured. For example, if I was going to port something from classic Battlefront 2 to Source Engine, there would be a bit of struggle there. But the engines for Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 3 are structured similarly. It's just there's a lot of things that Battlefront 3 used that Battlefront 2 doesn't support that we're having to kind of rework in the process. It should be easy. The things that are making it difficult are just the Battlefront 2 engine being a bit fussy.
You mean in general? Is it a hard game to mod even?
It's not a hard game to mod. I was a kid when I learned to mod it. It is very easy to mod. It's just this is very high-end modding. This isn't just you're making a fun map for your friends with your own custom units. We're trying to build another game inside a game, and that is just a very technical and lengthy process because we're trying to fit a game from a future generation into an older engine, and then the older engine obviously isn't built to support what we're trying to put in, and it's fighting back slightly. We're hoping with the new release that maybe the amount of limitations has been reduced slightly, but we doubt it. We reckon that we're going to be fighting the game engine for the next year or so. We're getting there. We've pretty much figured out how to handle things now, but for the last couple of years, it has been a lot of figuring out what makes the game engine happy, what doesn't make the game engine happy. But I like to think it has personality.
I guess one of the biggest problems for you guys is that you don't have the source code.
The source code would allow us to raise the limits, but it would be a kind of strange situation because we don't have the experience to go through and modify a renderer or a AI controller to improve the game. We know people that probably could do it, but we want our mod to always work. We don't want it to be in a legal grey area. I mean, it already is in a legal grey area, but we don't want it to be potentially more, unjustifiable. We don't want any action to even be proposed against it. Like, we got Battlefront 3 in the title, if Disney turns around and decides they want to make a Star Wars Battlefront 3, our heads are on the block. So even if like the source code leaked, we probably wouldn't go tampering with it ourselves. But yes, the source code would greatly benefit all mod development, not just us.
When I looked on the game files, on the different folders, it made for me the impression that everything is locked down, but listening to you, I guess you have the tools to open all the files.
The only thing we can't modify is the executable. So the actual renderer and the engine itself we can't modify. But every other element of the game is completely moddable. For example, if the Classic Collection in a few days releases and it doesn't have mod support, it will have mod support. Because everything in the game, except for the executable, was built using the very mod tools that Pandemic gave to us. It is how we're able to produce console mods and stuff. It's simply because tools that Pandemic gave us were probably slightly unintentionally incredibly liberating. We have basically full control of everything in the game except the very like back end code of the game.
It's really amazing that they gave you good mod tools. For some reason, I never stumbled over them or a guide, but sounds great that they did something there on that front.
Documentation is definitely limited. I think even we as a community basically only have two sources of documentation, and then it's just hearsay on how you do things.
Well, that's definitely more than the modern Battlefront games have. There you can change some skins and that's it.
Don't get me started there.
Oh, we will get there later. But first, I would like if you could share maybe some big problems you encountered during the development, something which just stopped you in your process.
Well, a lot of it is just time and motivation. The reason the mod kind of hit the brakes is just we started this as students. We're not students now. Now we're struggling for, time to dedicate to the project. That's a main reason why, the latest release is still the 2021 version, is because 2021 is when I became unavailable. And once I became unavailable, that was basically it. We're picking things up now, but a lot of actual development issues we've come across is Desolation Station. Desolation Station has been my baby. It has always been my baby. I've been working on it for way too long at this point. And for a long time, it simply just wouldn't cooperate with Battlefront 2. I would create the map. I would test it in Battlefront 2. It would work. I would change a very small thing, test it again, and it wouldn't work. It would surpass the game's memory limitation. We don't know what it was surpassing. We don't know exactly what part of the memory was overloading. We just know that the game basically just wouldn't accept the map, and I had to keep finding ways to circumvent it again and again. I've been lucky recently, and it's just decided that the map is compatible. But yeah, for a long time, there were many live streams I did, which were literally just titled "This Again," as I just sit there and endlessly debug this map that, by all mathematical calculations, should work. By all, modern knowledge, should work. Like, I'd turn to the community, to senior modders, to newer modders, and just be like, does anyone have an idea why this map is crashing? And nobody did. Another big technical issue that's actually just popped into my mind is Coruscant had quite a reputation. After the 2017 Steam multiplayer update came out, for an unknown reason, Coruscant, as it was, just stopped working. No one knew why, because it worked before fine, but ever since the Steam update, I think the open beta 3 and 4 version of Coruscant, as well as pre-demo 1, to this day, will not load without a patch. And it was the weirdest thing. I think I went through every file after being sent the map, and it turned out it was one, I don't know what it was. Honestly, I think I changed one number, and it just suddenly started working. It shouldn't have fixed anything. We've just been plagued of the weirdest bugs that nobody knows what they are, why they're happening, and we're just having to figure it out.
Sorry to every developer out there if I say that. That's exactly the reason why I don't go deeper into the IT sector. I love technology and everything, but it drives me crazy that just one number in the code can change so much, and you have to look for it for weeks sometimes. You can't figure it out why it then works sometimes also.
It's just how it is. We just kind of brute force everything, and eventually it will work.
One other thing I always wondered in the Battlefront 2 engine or the code itself was the main menu. How it was coded is basically so bad in the sense the game supports many different resolutions, but the main menu is ugly. It doesn't support anything except the standard resolution.
Well, there's a mod for that.
I know there is a mod for that, but do you know why it was done so stupidly that is so locked?
It was a request from LucasArts for compatibility. If you look at a lot of old games, especially from that era, that were like meant to be these big PC releases, you'd find that the game would either boot into 800 by 600 or the main menu would be 800 by 600 because the goal was, well, 800 by 600 was the minimum resolution that any Windows operating PC would use. So if you distribute a game preset to run at 800 by 600, it'll work on all computers.
But when this game was released in 2005, that resolution was so outdated.
There were still computers running 800 by 600 in 2005. I've seen loads of screenshots of people playing Counter-Strike Source and stuff on 800 by 600. I think the only reason Battlefront 1 didn't include it was, I don't know. But anyway, the decision was likely from LucasArts. It was done for compatibility, basically, to make sure that this game would run on everything. I think the reason that they didn't do the console menu again after Battlefront 1 is probably due to the use of the movie files in the background.
That it was too heavy to load and everything.
Yeah, movie files are very taxing. And I think it was using them on the main menu for Battlefront 1. Like, Battlefront 2 was meant to be compatible with everything. It's supposed to run on everything. It's supposed to be, this big release. So, easiest way to maximize compatibility, well, if you've got a slow video card or no video card, no movies on the main menu, your menu will load fast and it will run fine. And launch in 800 by 600, it will work on any monitor.
I can definitely understand that, but looking back, it's strange.
It is a decision that hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
But hopefully that's one of the few things Aspire have improved. I'm hoping they have rectified it.
Yeah, it would be nice.
That would be worth the $35 that they're asking.
That's a different subject, but we will go into that also. Sadly, I skipped something I just noticed. I also would like to know how big the team was and currently is.
It fluctuates. We have a lot of contributors who have added to the project over time, but actively developing it, we've never had more than 3. At the moment, it consists of, in name only, El Fabricio. In actions, he does absolutely fuck all. So, yeah, he's technically still on the team because we can't get rid of him, but I wouldn't describe him as actively developing it. There's me. There's Ryan Hank, who does all the animation work. He's been basically the recent, rising star. He's kind of come out of nowhere and is doing all this absolutely Chad work. But yeah, he's done all the animation stuff and he's helping a lot with the polish and he's just amazing. And then the third member of the team, third active developer, kind of fluctuates between whoever I'm asked to do model work. So it's between a German named Lamida, a American named Safe, and another American named River. And those 3 kind of just come and go. But yeah, actively developing at any one time, there's usually one lead developer who's building the actual mod. Someone's working on polishing content, and then someone is basically readying the mod for what we're going to add much further down the road. It's a small team.
But it doesn't have to be a giant team. Most games back in the past were created by just 4 or 5 guys. Sometimes even 1 was sufficient.
It's easier to manage a small team. We've tried to expand the team before. We've tried to go we can recruit a couple of guys to do 3D art and stuff. But it's keeping on top of them, because that means you're going to have someone who does all the mediation, to do all the managing. But they can't be involved with doing anything, because otherwise they'll just do the work themselves. It creates this kind of problem where if everyone has something to do, no one can make sure that everyone else is doing stuff. So we swapped to small team. It just works better if we have one guy who's actually building the mod, knows what they're doing, and then they can turn to whoever is skilled in the area that he needs help with. Just turns around and goes, "Yeah, this is what I need done. Can you get it done by this time?" And yeah, that's how we've been doing it basically. At the moment, I'm the lead developer, so I'm turning around telling people what to do. But if Fab comes back, then I'll obviously no longer be the lead developer, but he doesn't come back.
I also wonder, how did the team first met and how is the current way to meet different developers? Back then, we didn't have any Discord, we had ICQ, MSN Messenger.
Back then, we had forums. It was the tail end of the forums. Legacy team formed in early 2016. It started with El Fabricio. Well, actually, no, it started with all of the Battlefront 2 modders, actually, because Battlefront 3 builder just leaked. It was being ripped. The assets were being ripped out, and they were being posted on different areas of the internet. One of them was the Battlefront 2 modding forums. And loads of different Battlefront 2 modders were like looking at it and going, we need to get this stuff in the game. But El Fabricio was the first one who started doing maps, trying to recreate the maps. And I was there. A couple other people were there. We don't really form an official legacy team. It's just we kind of contributed. I gave him stuff to work with for his mod. Another person did all the clones for him and the vehicles. And there's another person who did all the user interface stuff, and we just like kind of give this stuff to him for his mod project, and it would slowly build. It wouldn't be till a couple of years later that an actual team would be put together when the scope of the mod kind of grew, and instead of tackling a couple maps from Battlefront 3, it became all the maps and all the content. I was recruited onto the team in a kind of funny way. I was remaking Battlefront 3 maps on my own, just because I wanted to, and I was doing live streams of it. I think Fab was online for one of them, and he just decided to recruit me, and I never intended to become lead developer. I just wanted to work on maps, but here I am, running the whole show. And then other developers I've just kind of picked up along the way. They've shown interest, they've shown skill. The best way, if you want to meet other developers, is simply do stuff. Not small stuff. Do stuff that shows your skills. Like if you're an animator, do good animations. The games industry and modding all works on portfolios. Like if you show you're capable to do things, if you show you're capable and trustworthy, people will just pick you up. They'll just like, oh yeah, do you want to come work with us? And you can just join any project then. I've been approached for projects. I've turned them down because Legacy's too soul consuming, but yeah, talent finds talent.
That's so true that the best way to get known is just do something and publish it. Doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or mod database. But what I think this game and the classic Battlefront are a little bit missing is a real community hub. We had some Discords, but they are sadly a little bit gone. Is there something where the players can meet, something I didn't find maybe?
So there's a long story. Basically, Battlefront 2 has had a long history of multiplayer, and it's deep rooted with clan culture, and it's been very detrimental to the health of the community. It's only gotten worse over the years. Like years ago, if you wanted to interact with the modding community, you go to the modding forums. All the modders were there. There was no exceptions, and if they were an exception, then you didn't want to talk to them anyway. But yeah, there was like the modding forum for Battlefront 2. There was the modding forum for Battlefront 1. If you want to talk to the modders and content creators of these games, that's where they'd be. The multiplayer community were fractured between their own forums with their own clan forums, and it was a very, it still is a very toxic kind of community structure when it comes to the multiplayer side. But no, modding, it's kind of weird. The migration to Discord was rough. Legacy was one of the first, if not the first, classic Battlefront, like actual classic Battlefront community that wasn't, a multiplayer clan to move to Discord. I think at the moment, Harrison Fogg has tried to build his server up as a community hub, and there have been a couple other attempts to build community hubs. Due to how fractured the community is, it just never works. And that's just down to how the clan culture has basically kind of destroyed a large amount of the community. 2017, 2018, during the peak Discord years, there were 15 different Battlefront 2 multiplayer servers. None of them got along. I even tried to bring them all together onto one server, and I basically just said put one person from each clan as admin, and that backfired. Everyone got banned from that server.
That's sad.
Yeah. I think the closest thing to a true community hub at the moment is it depends who you ask. Battlefront 2 is such a weird game. I've really been upset about the state of the game because you got two different communities, completely different sides of the community. You have the modding community, and we do have a community hub. You can find all of the modders on one server, getting along, modding the game. But when it comes to the multiplayer side, it's a completely different side of the community. None of them really care about modding. They just want to play multiplayer in a very competitive way. And then they themselves have sub communities, and it's weird.
Sounds very fractioned.
Yeah, it is fraction, but modding is kind of the largest fraction. The Timecodes Discord is where we all kind of gather. It is very modding central, though. It's the server for modders, but that is our community hub when it comes to Battlefront 2. But if you're interested in multiplayer and stuff, there's probably another server. It's kind of the game was so old, it had all the different forums, and then the owners of each forum obviously made their own servers, and there's never been a unified effort because every time someone's proposed it, the power structure can just never form. We don't have an elected head of community to run everything. I haven't got a big enough ego to do it, and I don't think a lot of people will ever accept me running such a thing. That is way too much power to give me. But it's we can't trust Harrison Fogg to do it. We can't trust any of the competitive Battlefront players to do it because they'll just make it all about them. Can't trust any of the clans. The modding community just aren't interested in the multiplayer clans, and it's just there's no balance. There's no way to unify everyone. It is a fractured community.
Yeah, like I said before, a little bit sad, but moving back to something more positive, to your mod basically, what would you say after so many years is your favorite feature, your favorite ship or unit in the game?
My favorite thing about my mod? Oh, this is difficult. I don't think I have a favorite thing yet. There's nothing that's shining out to me going, yes, this was amazing, because everything can be improved. It is a huge project. I haven't turned around and gone, oh yeah, I'm really proud of this. There've been moments where I've been really full of pride. Every little step I take, I'm really proud. I love to show off what I've done. It's meaningful to me that I've made progress, and I should celebrate every time I do anything. But there's nothing I've turned around and go, oh yes, that was my favorite. Not yet.
And were there certain features from the original Battlefront 3 leaked code that you're proud of that you managed to include?
I don't think I've quite got there yet. There's quite a few things that we're yet to introduce that are going to be interesting. But the thing is that due to the nature of Battlefront 2 modding, nothing we're doing is new or exciting. It's kind of always been possible. Other modders have done some far more technical feats. But what I'll be impressed with will be if we can do it all, maintain multiplayer compatibility, and just have it all work without any jankiness. And I think I'm very happy that recently, last couple of months, we've obviously got destructible capital ships working and stuff. And I'll be very happy to see them polished and functional, because that's something that we haven't seen in a Battlefront 2 mod before, as far as I'm aware. There probably is one that hasn't come to my mind, but that's a big deal. It's a big part of what Battlefront 3 was going to be, and it will just be good to know that we're on the right track, that we're getting there.
That sounds really amazing. The biggest complaint in the vanilla version of the game in the space combat aspect was that it could have been more. I loved that you could destroy the ship from the outside and from the inside, but on both sides it could have been more. You could have included better rooms, better looking rooms, or bigger rooms, more subsystems outside. There were so much more on the table.
I'm keeping strictly to a simplified vision. We want to reflect what's in BF3, but at the same time, like, we're not going to expand upon it as much when it comes to space, because it's space to ground. So we don't want one area to overpower the other. But we are working on some, well, I am working on some very interesting space content soon. And I hope to show it off very soon, but depends on time.
It always does, sadly. Since you already opened the door to this subject, what is the future of the project? When can we maybe see the next version of it?
We were hoping to get a vertical slice out for the release of the Classic Collection. We were hoping for it to be a relatively sizable update, but I'm probably going to cut back due to the recent events have just kind of delayed stuff and kind of sucked motivation out of the project. So we've obviously been dealing with that. But I think soon, I'm hoping by the end of this month, that we will have the vertical slice demo. It has been cut back to one map, which does kind of suck, but we want this map to be complete. So, yeah, we're stripping the mod back, but we're also actually producing the first slice, vertical slice, of finished Battlefront 3 Legacy content, with every game mode except campaign functioning, every class running how we want them to, looking roughly how we want them to. It's going to be a difference from us trying to push a wave of content to us throwing you a droplet of content that's, immaculate. But yeah, hopefully this month, fingers crossed, don't quote me on it, we are going to produce our one map demo. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And then after that, we're going to continue to quite frequently push new content.
So we can expect more updates this year?
Oh yes, it's going to explode this year, providing that I can get the first step out of the way. It's always that first step. Releasing something is always the hardest part of developing something, because you want every release to be this big celebration, which is a kind of lot of pressure, because at the same time there are people who would want to see, you pushing every single little tweak update out. But I don't want to do that because it's just a lot of hassle. Because if I create a bug, like I've learned from mistakes in the past, if you create a bug or something that crashes games and stuff, and then you push every little update you can, and you haven't found that bug, people will find it, and then you have to deal with people moaning about it, and then you have to try and get everyone to update again. So we've been under a lot of pressure. Well, I've been under a lot of pressure because I want to produce one update that'll be big, a kind of reset for Legacy, and then update onto it, rather than trying to push loads of little updates, so I don't trip myself over.
Sounds interesting, but also very, very stressful.
Releasing is the most difficult part. It's always the most difficult part.
And you mentioned kind of a reset. Does this mean you basically scrap all the old maps and redo them, or how do you envision that?
We've already redone a couple of maps, and a couple of new maps are already ready or close to being ready to ship. It's just formatting everything, getting it all ready for release, and then getting out the door. That's been the problem. Hopefully, with the vertical slice demo and then building upon the vertical slice demo, we will be able to quite easily distribute new maps, update old ones. The 2021 pack was a very rushed together release. It's going to be a long time till we can even compete with the amount of content that's in it. But that's because we're raising the bar, and it'll be worth it long term. It's just short term. There's going to continue to be a little bit of a drought, but the good news is the new version of Legacy will be 100% compatible with the old version, so we're not replacing anything, we're just renovating it.
And really wait to play it.
You'll be able to install the latest version and play the 2021 pack. Like, even the same maps will still work, because we've changed that much that it will literally run completely independent of each other. They're not even the same mod anymore. The game won't recognize them as the same mod.
Sounds like a huge step forward. Yeah, like I said, can't wait to play it. I also saw on your mod database page that you worked on not only maps, but on the Xbox DLC content and brought that basically to the PC players. How did this start?
I've been trying to do it for years. Basically, ever since I got my hands on the extraction tools capable of getting stuff from the Xbox maps, I've been trying to get them working in the Battlefront 2 engine. And eventually, someone in the modding community just turned around and said, "Yeah, I can make Xbox maps work on PC now." And I just literally messaged him immediately, like, "Hey, could you give me those? I will build up the rest of the stuff around it, and I will release it as a packaged mod." And I did. The only thing I couldn't do was get Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress to load together because the game didn't like them until this year when someone turned around onto the modding Discord and said, "Hey, I can get Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress to load together." And I was like, messaged him and I said, "Oh, hey, I could use these in my already existing DLC mod." That was Ryan Hank. He's on the Legacy team. I asked him to do it months ago. I really wish he did it when I asked him to.
Did the game just crash, or what was the problem? Why didn't the game like those two characters?
They would crash because of a weird bug relating to animation, and we're really kind of puzzled by it because Pandemic went out of their way to update the game to raise the limitation for Xbox, but not PC. But at the same time, it was a limitation that didn't need to be raised.
Sounds strange. Maybe it's my understanding or misunderstanding of the game engine itself. I always thought that the PC version is the more or less best version, that the powerful.
It's weird. Pandemic made their own engine, and this means that every platform has its own different backend, basically. So PS2 can do stuff that the Xbox can't. I think best example is if you've ever played a PlayStation 2 version, you'll know that it can do blurring and it can do bloom. And if you play Xbox, it can't do bloom, but it can do normal mapping, but it can't do specular mapping. It's weird. And then obviously the PSP can't do anything because it's a really butchered version of the engine. But PC can do everything. But because the Xbox got the DLC, it also got an update that PC version didn't, which was essential to get the DLC working properly. Well, I can't say it was essential to get the DLC working properly because we got it working properly on PC. But Xbox did get an update that raised some limits, albeit unnecessarily, that PC doesn't have. It might have it now with the Classic Collection, but yeah, PC is technically the best version, followed by Xbox.
Since you also touched this subject, I would like to ask about your opinion. What do you think about the re-release? Is it something good? Is it something bad?
It remains to be seen. It had, and I'm going to say had, the potential to be amazing. Do I think they've made it amazing? Probably not. I reckon it's already a success. If they play their cards right, it can still be good. Will I be disappointed in it? Probably not. But they are definitely, without a doubt, going to leave things on the table, and it remains to be seen what they've left out and whether there's any problems. There's certainly been things that we've already struck fear about, but I have faith that it won't be a colossal waste of time.
What do you think? Will it be compatible to the original release in the multiplayer sense? Can players join each other?
I'm going to assume no. We don't think that's happening. We reckon that all of the games by netcode has been completely gutted. I don't think it's going to be crossplay on PC. They would have said so, which they haven't. We are certain that it's going to be completely independent. This is going to be a completely different release of Battlefront 2. It's going to be if Microsoft made the original Xbox version of Battlefront 2 work on PC.
I feel something like that. It sadly fractures the community more.
It's happened before. It's happened many times now. It happened when GameSpy shut down. It happened when Steam Multiplayer update came out. Even during the wilderness years between GameSpy and Steam Multiplayer coming back in 2017. 5 years? No, 3 years. Those 3 years, the community was fractured between two different ways to play multiplayer. It keeps happening. But the one thing the community does is it will eventually pick one. And I think this time, anyone who actually cares enough will be on the new version. Unless they really fuck up, in which case, probably not. I think if dedicated servers are supported, the new version will come out on top. But if they aren't, then there will be a lot of stragglers who are going to stay behind. Same with mods. If mods aren't supported by the new version, there'll be a lot of stragglers who will stay with the original release. It's as I said earlier. It's what have they left on the table?
Especially if you consider how cheap the original are, especially during Steam sales.
I'm interested to see if they'll delist them. I'm surprised they haven't yet.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
That's the big thing giving me faith is that they haven't delisted them, which makes me believe that they don't have mod support. They would have delisted those games if they recognized that there wouldn't be any real backlash. But the fact that the games are still up says to me there's a strong likelihood that they've left something on the table and they know that people aren't going to sit at it. They know that there is value in keeping those games listed. And I think it'll be something stupid like mod support. Well, official mod support.
It will be interesting.
We will find a way.
Well, then the last thing I also would like to touch is what do you think about the other Battlefront games? What Battlefront games did you play and what are your thoughts on them?
I've played them all. Every Battlefront game released except for the crappy AT&T mobile game. I have played all the PSP releases, the cancelled game, the new games, and to be honest, I don't think DICE was the problem. I think EA was the problem. Battlefront has always treaded the line of being sandboxy enough that it felt like a large-scale experience, while simplified enough that it was casual. It treaded the line between fun shooter and military simulator. It's such a fine line. Like, you could either end up going too far and becoming too much like a military simulator, like Squad. Squad tried to tread the line, but I feel like it ended up too much on the military simulator side. Or you could end up too far on the sandbox side, and your game becomes a little bit too ridiculous. I can't think of an example right now, but I definitely have had one in the past of a game which tried to walk the line. Battlefront did it perfectly, which is funny because I don't think Pandemic were really trying that hard. Rebellion simplified it, definitely made it more casual, but it wasn't a problem. They were portable games. I don't need a large scale military sandbox on PSP. I just needed a fun shooter to waste time, and they did that perfectly. EA, did they create good games? Yeah, they were okay. Do they have the same staying power? No. There's definitely a lot of mistakes they made. I would say what EA ended up with was more comparable to what First Assault was trying to be, but I don't hate the games. They just are stale games. They weren't sandboxy enough. They didn't tread the line. They ended up kind of in a weird, completely different genre where it's more linear and they just ended up as casual shooters, and they are fun casual shooters. I enjoyed 2015 when that was a thing. I would go back and play 2015 if they actually bundled the DLC maps into the main playlist. I would go back and play 2017 if the community wasn't complete cringe. I love all Battlefront games. It's just there's been a lot of different takes on what it means to be a Battlefront game, and I don't agree with a lot of them. It's kind of the magic of the original games.
Yeah, definitely can concur on nearly everything you just said. Especially that the newer titles will sadly be a little bit forgotten maybe in the future.
Don't get me wrong, especially the 2015 game was a technical masterpiece. Like EA, and I really do encourage that they do this, should just repackage them, release them again. A lot of people might get up in arms and be like, "Oh, it's just a cash grab." I would quite happily pay $60 again for Battlefront 2015 with the DLC maps included, with a very small graphical bump. The visual fidelity, the audio fidelity were and still are amazing. In an era where we're dealing with AI generated art and everybody has access to photo scanned assets, the fact that the games coming out now do not look anywhere near as good as the original Battlefront 2015, it appalls me. I remember sitting there, I was amazed. It's the little Endor map with where it's all set inside the bunker and the landing platform, and it's raining. I remember seeing that for the first time, and I was being like, "Wow, this game looks fucking amazing." Even though I played the beta, and I'd seen like Sullust and Tatooine already, but it was seeing that map, and I was like, "This game is the best looking game I've ever seen." And even today, I'm still sat there like, it's still one of the best looking games I've ever seen. It has been a decade, and I don't feel like games have even really surpassed it. EA should repackage, re-release 2015 with the DLC maps in the rotation. Maybe find some kind of new content to throw in there so people don't, feel it's unjustified, and re-release it for a lower price. Maybe I would buy it. Slap some ray tracing support, update the engine a bit to like a newer version of Frostbite. Done. 2017, a re-release could work, but I feel like if they did that, people would just, there'd be no enjoying the game. It would all be about trying to restart the live service.
It's true, especially that the games had some very unique features and, yeah, very amazing aspects. Especially, I really enjoyed the campaign in Battlefront II 2017. But what for me is the biggest no-no, I also mentioned that in our review, is that the matchmaking is not only terrible, it's so bad that you can't even decide on what map you will play. So if they re-release a bundle and they want from me again $60, euros, whatever, and I can't even decide what map I will play.
2015 allowed you to. It's just 2015, like I said, the problem is the DLC maps aren't bundled into the main map pool.
Then that's better, but in the Battlefront 2, you can't decide, and there are so many maps who I never even saw because I can't even select them in the skirmish modes against the AI. It's
They did do a lot of weird things with Battlefront 2. There are a lot of poor decisions. It is clear that they wanted to do a live service game, but they didn't know how they were going to run it, and they kept changing their minds. And I feel like it had a lot more potential, but they really fucked it. I don't care if it was EA pulling the team away or whatever, but they started off really strong with how they're going to do the live service model. Then it kind of weakened, and then they weren't really sure, and then they kind of got a hold of things towards the end, but the game was already sunset at that point, so they just mismanaged that game massively. Battlefront 2017 matchmaking is god awful, I will admit. It is absolutely shit. 2015 at least allowed you to choose game mode and map, but that came at the cost of absolutely abhorrent UI. I'm all for choosing exactly what map you want to play on, but at the same time, I'd rather everybody be just kind of thrown in together and you end up in a populated lobby than you trying to find the one particular thing you want to play and you can't find it. I do think they definitely need server browsers. Every game needs a community server browser. But I could live without it when the game was live. Now it's not live, I can't live without it. But 2017 to 2019, it didn't really bother me that there was no alternative to matchmaking. Well, it did, but I wouldn't say it was like the biggest letdown for me.
I'm sadly so old school that I just enjoy having features like direct IP, LAN mode, for the simple fact that I really can say, hey, I can play this game in 10 years with my friends on a LAN party. So it will definitely never be forgotten in my circle. And yeah, if games don't have that feature, it's sometimes dangerous that it will be forgotten.
My hope again is just that they do really. The games have aged wonderfully. I don't think they like a lot of people are going, "Oh, we want Star Wars Battlefront 3." EA have money to be made. They just I'm hoping that they see the Classic Collection, and instead of going, we should make Battlefront 3, we should re-release our Battlefront games. Admittedly, if they add a server browser, it'll be great. But obviously, I've done a lot of, I understand a lot about game networking, and there are reasons why games don't have server browsers anymore. Not all of them are good reasons, but there are reasons.
That's true, sadly. Some are good, some are bad. That's so true. Well, I would say we are moved a little bit off topic from your amazing mod. The last thing I would like to ask, if there is a big mod support in the latest version, in the re-release, I guess you will switch to that?
We probably will, but that doesn't mean I won't go back and see if I can get everything that we're working on the older version as well.
That's really good. It's amazing that you keep it backwards compatibility up and yeah, make everybody happy. Well, I would say this is the part of the video where I open the mic to you. Is there anything we missed? Anything you would like to add?
Go play my mod. Go enjoy my mod. Go look at other people's mods. Legacy isn't the only mod. There are hundreds of really good ones. Go check them out. These games, they're never going to die. There's always something new you can experience. Get a couple friends. Go test these mods online. And yeah, have a good time.
Then I end this with thank you for joining me. It was nice talking to you and experience a little bit of the history of those classic titles. And yeah, for everything you've done on the mod, it's an amazing part of the game experience now for me.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. It does mean a lot when, I meet people enthusiastic about my mod that aren't just asking how to install it. Because ultimately, what motivates me to do it is seeing people experience it. I have fun making it, but I'd have fun making anything. What makes me make this is knowing that people want this. And ultimately, the feedback I get goes into the mod. The praise I get goes to my head. And it's good for everyone.
Well done. I just have to give you even a bigger thank you for listening to feedback from the community. That's so good to hear. But I would say that the interview is long enough. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think about the game, and of course, play the game. Until next time.